2024 was a roller coaster of a year. From shocking scandals to legendary comebacks, it seemed like chaos was the main theme. But in the midst of all of it, we anime fans were living our best lives. Studios cooked up some incredible shows and we feasted. Some dishes were gourmet, while others were, well, let's just say acquired tastes. But that doesn't mean we ate healthily, because as every season comes around, a new spring of Isekai takes stage. We got some amazing long-awaited sequels, and some sequels that honestly shouldn't have even come into being. Cause if you tell me this trash is a sequel, refund your brain and I'll bleach my eyes. And since we can't trust Crunchyroll to judge a dog's tricks, this time we'll be covering Isekai of the Year, for both the sequels and the standalone series. So first we'll go over all the ones people really care about, and then pick out my personal favorites, then honorable mentions, and finally the Isekai of the Year. Now with that said, let's begin with the sequels. But first, I want to talk to you about something that you definitely don't want to miss. What if I told you that you could snag not one, but two powerful epic champions and a chance to win $5,000 for a holiday shopping spree? Plus other prizes like gaming consoles, smartphones, and even in-game loot. Sounds pretty crazy, right? Well, it's real. This video is sponsored by Raid Shadow Legends, an epic collection RPG featuring a bunch of unique champions, and they're pulling out all the stops for their Christmas event, live until January 15th. It's super easy to join. Just download Raid using my link or this QR code, then head over to xmas.raidrpg.com, enter your Raid ID, and start playing a minigame to save Santa. That's it, and you're in the running for prizes like gaming gear and so much more. And if that's not enough, there are two winter-themed champions you need to add to your collection. Sir Nicholas, who is an absolute tank, with his freezing debuffs, unkillable buffs, and massive shield abilities make him an absolute beast. Then there's Whirlim Frost King, a versatile void legendary perfect for the arena and mid-game. He lowers enemies' crit damage and accuracy while boosting your team with increased defense and strengthen, making him a powerhouse for Doom Tower in tough battles, and honestly, their icy designs are chef's kiss. If you're new to Raid, this is the best time to jump in. Click my link in the description or scan my QR code to get insane bonuses available only via my link. You'll immediately get a huge starter pack with an epic champion, Yugo, and you'll get another starter pack after reaching level 15 that includes an epic Fame. After downloading with my link, use a promo code Monkey King to get a legendary champion Sun Wukong for free. Though the promo code is only available till February 7th, so be fast. And you can even join my clan, Tempest Towers. So download Raid today, and thank you for Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. With the coming of 2024, a lot of our long-awaited favorites finally got their sequels. And while I love a lot of these isekais, and adore one in specific, a lot of these continuations covered the more chill arcs in their series. So with that being said, I guess I should start with Moonlit Fantasy Season 2. So with Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy, the thing is, Season 1 had that perfect mix of humor, action, and world building that made every episode a blast to watch. From Makoto's overpowered moments to the hilarious antics of Tomoe and Mio, it was just overall fun. And it's safe to say that Season 2 definitely didn't disappoint. The first season seemed to have focused on a bunch of adventures, while this season focused more on the domestic and political side of Makoto's journey. There were times where the pacing felt like it slowed down by a lot, but then a couple episodes later it picked back up and the tension would rise. Not just that, but we also got to see a different side of Makoto that we probably wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Along with the introduction of new characters and the built-up information on characters that we already had, gave us something to focus on that wasn't just Makoto beating the hell out of people. Though it's not like we didn't get our fair share of that either, cause some of the fights they had this season were absolutely amazing. Everybody loves seeing the overpowered MC show off his abilities and beat the crap out of everyone, and it's fair to say that we definitely got what we needed. Not to mention, we also got a deeper understanding of the world of Tsukimichi Moonlit Fantasy in general. So all in all, the second season wasn't amazing, but it was definitely a good watch and lived up to the expectations I had. but it definitely 1000% could have gotten way worse. When we look at something like Demon Lord Retry, which was already trash, but was the good type of trash I was able to enjoy to some degree. And I'm not gonna lie, I was really excited when I heard this was coming out, cause I had been waiting for it for a long time. But somehow, some way these bastards managed to make it worse. There's this whole backstory that wasn't there before, the characters looked different, the story itself got worse, and the plot somehow got boring. And everything was an absolute crapfest. I can't stress enough how much they messed this one up, and I don't even want to consider this as a sequel since it's more like a trashy off-brand. But I digress. As for the rest of the sequels, it would take forever to go over each and every detail, so let's just speedrun the rest. Next up, Spirit Chronicles. It was a pretty decent watch and I was able to get through it, though I had wished it was the second season of the Assassin one, so I'll give it a solid 6.5. Then we have Arifureta. It was pretty decent since we finally made some actual decent progress in the story sense, and seen quite a bit of change in Hajime as a character and some decent growth. Not to mention, we also got to explore some of the other characters. As for the animation, well, it's Arifureta. I've grown to accept that. 6.9. Konosuba was funny as usual and was honestly the only isekai that managed to make me laugh continuously for the whole series, so I'll give it a solid 7.5. Now for our top 3. We'll start out with the third, and to no one's surprise, it's Tensura. Now, let me begin with saying that this one was not only a personal pick, but was also based on how much I enjoyed the series, and how much significance this season had on the series as a whole. And with that being the case, I decided to put it at third. I know most people don't normally like the meeting seasons, but this specific season set up what is possibly the most action-packed arc in Tensura, and despite it being one of those meeting seasons, we still had our fair share of action that we were all looking forward to. And even when that was done, I still had fun watching the regular parts. This season covered the more wholesome, diverse, and developmental part of the series, showing what Rimuru's ideal world looks like and how close he is to achieving that goal. Showing us sides to characters that we never saw much of before, revealing new characters that we never saw at all, and painting an image of tranquility in this new world of survival of the fittest was honestly some of the best Tensura content I've ever watched. And that wholesome part of Tensura Season 3 is why it was third for me. Now for our top 2. And taking the second spot is ReZero Season 3. Honestly, it shouldn't really come to a surprise to anyone. This pick wasn't just personal, it was about how much this season brought to the table in terms of emotional depth, storytelling, and the sheer stakes it added to the series as a whole. That's why it's sitting comfortably in its second place spot. Though a lot of people said that they felt like this season didn't really feel like the stakes were very high, though I completely disagree. For example, I've heard someone say that the first 3 deaths Subaru had didn't really feel that impactful, and while I can understand their point of view, I do completely disagree. We've seen Subaru die hundreds of thousands of times in many different ways, but this is the first time that I can remember we've ever seen him die to fair. And even arguing that, I know some might argue it's just another arc in Subaru's never-ending cycle of suffering, but hear me out. What makes ReZero Season 3 so special isn't just the intense moments or the fights against impossible odds he had, it's the way it builds on everything that's come before. This season dove deeper into Subaru's character than ever before, forcing him to confront his limits and grow as a person. And let's not forget the Watergate City arc, which managed to be both chaotic and meaningful at the same time. It wasn't just action or mystery, it was about pushing the characters into situations where their bonds, beliefs, and abilities were tested to the absolute limit. Subaru's determination to protect everyone no matter how impossible the odds seemed made this season completely unforgettable. Though what really sealed it for me was the balance. The balance this season struck between heart-pounding tension and heartfelt moments. It gave us time to breathe, reflect, and truly appreciate the world and characters that make ReZero so captivating. Not to mention, we finally got a deeper look at other characters and even some brand new characters. And finally getting to see one of my favorite isekai villains finally animated also helped to seal the deal. Putting all of that together and the emotional weight of everything Subaru and the others went through this season is what makes it a clear runner-up for me. And now for our number one spot, which you guys probably all saw coming, that would be Mushoku Tensei. Now where do I even begin with this one? The first season of Mushoku Tensei, both its first and second part were both masterpieces. Every single part of it was wonderful. The characters, their writing, the world itself, the sounds, the visuals, the emotion, just everything. Then we were given the second season for it, and everything that the first season did was surpassed. The emotional baggage I could feel from Rudius, watching him struggle, then recover, then struggle again, then recover, only to struggle once more, and with an emotionally confusing ending that I was completely satisfied with, was just amazing. I found myself struggling midway through to continue watching, but at the same time I was so engrossed I could do nothing but watch. There were times I felt genuine agony over watching Rudius, looking at these decisions, being angry at him for them, and being surprised by the response. Not just Rudius, but seeing how much Sylphie has grown, not just physically, but mentally and emotionally. With a stark contrast of Roxy remaining almost the same as she was when Rudius left her. Everything about Mushoku Tensei was beautiful and entertaining, to the point where it kind of hurt. The series isn't even done, and it already feels like Rudius has grown so much from what he was originally. Not just from how he deals with himself, but also how he deals with his family members. Mushoku Tensei had the biggest impact on me, so much so to the point where when I was writing this video, it was the first thing that came to mind, and nothing else could really compete with it. So with that said, that's why, in my opinion, Mushoku Tensei is the best sequel to come out in the year 2024. Now, I know what you guys are all waiting for. It's now time to move on to the new series that came out. We had some pretty good ones, I'm not gonna lie. Some that were underwhelming and others that were surprisingly good. But we'll be focusing on our top 5 honorable mentions, and then one isekai that stood out and managed to make it to the top. So with that said, our first honorable mention would be No Longer Allowed in Another World. If Dazai once succeeded in his goal and got isekai and got his own anime, it would probably be pretty much exactly like this. And I can't lie, it was surprisingly entertaining. The first couple episodes were pretty funny, and the dynamic between Sensei, the elf, and the cat that we still don't know the real name of was something that kinda reminded me of Konosuba. Then when he finally whipped out his magic book that sends people back to Earth, everything just got way more interesting. It kind of took the whole hero's party going on adventures thing that we normally see but is done pretty awfully in isekais, took that and turned it on his head and made it way more entertaining. For once, it felt like the hero's party was actually doing heroing, but it didn't seem pretentious or boring. Not to mention the fact that this isekai actually felt like it had some level of depth, made me actually want to sit through and watch every single second of it. Honestly, it was one of the more solid isekais I've seen this year and in a while in general, and I'd love to see a second season of it soon. Next would be the winner of this year's longest titled isekai for absolutely no reason. As a reincarnated aristocrat, I'll use my appraisal skill to rise to the world. Now, this one is way better than I thought it would be. I have to admit, I went into it pretty much expecting it to be boring since it didn't really feel like he would be doing much and would be pretty much only be giving orders. And I'm not saying that can't be entertaining, but I definitely wasn't expecting it from this one. I did kind of have to force myself through the first couple of episodes, but after that I can confidently say that it wasn't bad. It wasn't incredibly funny, though it wasn't dull. The action wasn't amazing, but at the same time it was pretty decent. The characters weren't very high tier, but at the same time they were also, again, decent. It wasn't necessarily anything special, just entertaining enough for me to just sit down and watch. Maybe that's also because it got too coarse, so I got more time to enjoy it completely, but in terms of my opinion in it, it's alright. Next would be Chilling in Another World with level 2 super cheat powers. Nope. Never mind, this one's title was longer. Now, I can't lie, I didn't finish the anime for this one, but I am fully caught up with the manga, and assuming that things have continued the way they went there, then this one was absolutely golden for me personally. Well, specifically because of the romance aspect. It's pretty rare to see an isekai do romance that well and it actually be entertaining and not just full of a bunch of crappy fan service. Though again, I didn't finish the anime, but I do hope that they've continued or at least gotten up to the points where the romance is decent. Which I doubt because for some reason it didn't really do so well on the analyst score, so that's quite a bummer. But this one had its funny moments, and this girl is best waifu, I don't care, I'll fight for it. Now our second to last mention would be I'll become a villainess that will go down in history. Every season and every year we're granted one of these villainous type isekais, and every time they surprise me with how good they are. It was decently funny, though sometimes it felt like it lacked tension, but even then I didn't really mind. The characters were meh. But yeah, not really much to say here, just a decent watch. Now for our last honorable mention, we have Demon Lord 2099. Now, most of you probably expected this one to be first. I can definitely see why. Demon Lord 2099 was pretty fun. Extremely fun. This is the first time I've seen such a take on the isekai genre, and I can't lie, I enjoyed every single second of it. I've always liked the idea of mixing sci-fi and fantasy, and adding isekai to the mix just makes it all the more better. In fact, the world of Demon Lord 2099 is incredibly reminiscent of a combination of cyberpunk and How Not to Summon a Demon Lord. And because of that change, the whole series itself felt completely brand new. And even down to the power system being adjusted was honestly something that I enjoyed a lot. So I can definitely see why a lot of people would have this running for Isekai of the Year. But unfortunately, or fortunately, there was one other Isekai that just barely edged it out. And with that being said, it's time for number one pick. The isekai that stood over them all, and it has to be none other than The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic. Now hear me out, I legit spent minutes trying to figure out what was my favorite. Either this, Demon Lord 2099, or No Longer in Another World. But what ended up being the deciding factor for me was basically how much I was able to remember it despite it coming out quite early into the year. Don't get me wrong, these other options were amazing, and pretty much every isekai that I said for honorable mentions could have been Isekai of the Year, but it was just slightly better. But for this one, I had already read the manga, so I knew what I was getting into. So all I was worried about was if the studio would do it justice, and they did. The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic already had everything it needed to win. First off, I love the take they had on our boy Usato actually having to do the Saitama workout routine to be able to put his powers to use. I even said in a previous video that it's pretty hard to find characters in isekai that you can say that they actually worked for their powers and abilities. But when Usato got his, he was pretty much this useless scrawny kid with just an aptitude for healing magic. But thanks to this hunkin', hulking, brawny muscle mommy, bro got the perfect body for fighting, using healing magic, and other activities. Not to mention, the side characters were honestly pretty fun. We already mentioned my favorite side character, but as for the other two heroes, it was kinda shocking how good they were. Specifically the girl hero, but I can't remember her name though, so yeah. But they felt more real. Nothing they did was overdone, they didn't have any huge complexes, they were just decently written and genuinely funny. Not to mention the fact that everything in the series felt like it had a purpose or meaning. It felt like everything Usato and the others did was for something. His training, his fun, his relationships, the dialogue, everything just made me want to pay attention to what would happen next. There wasn't a bunch of unnecessary fan service. There was not that much fan service. Okay, maybe there was a little fan service, but way less than most isekais. But even then, the fan service felt like it actually meant something. Not to mention, the animation was incredibly smooth, way leagues above something like Adafureta. Sometimes I really do feel like I throw too much shade on that series. But everything about The Wrong Way to Use Healing Magic was able to meet my expectations, which is why, to me, it deserves its #1 spot. And honestly, I need a second season of this before like next year. But yeah, that's all I've got for you guys today. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, follow me on Twitter, have a wonderful New Year's, and thank you for Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. And I'll see you guys next week.